For today, many of you probably heard about the horrific organ transplant abuse in China, including reports that Falun Gong practitioners and other prisoners of conscience are killed to supply the lucrative trade in human body parts. I first learned about these allegations nearly a decade ago, when David Matas and David Kilgore, and also the Miss World Canada 2003, Nazanin F. Xinjiang, were speaking about it in Vancouver. But it took me a long time to nearly confront the gravity of this crime, to consider deeply what it means that tens of thousands, or perhaps hundreds of thousands of innocent people are being killed for their organs. The first time I was made to grapple seriously with this issue was when I starred in a film called The Bleeding Edge, which is based on true events. In it, I played a Falun Gong practitioner imprisoned for her beliefs, who was tied to an operation table as her vital organs are removed to be sold for a profit. Acting in this scene required me to imagine what this process would be like from the standpoint of a victim. And I had to imagine the sheer terror of knowing that death was imminent. It was a feeling of utterly helplessness, of being at the mercy of a cold-blooded murderer who would show me none. On the street, if someone assaults you and steals your purse, you can scream for help. Tied to a hospital bed in a surgical room of a labor camp, no one can hear you scream. In China, it is the state itself that is involved in organ stealing. As I consider this crime while preparing for my film's performance, I felt engulfed by the profound vulnerability and the injustice of it all. So it was a turning point for me, which made me realize that I feel that it is my duty to do all in my power to generate awareness about this issue. And I hope that you will feel the same after today's hearing. One of the factors that made it difficult to really grasp the magnitude of these crimes is that the victims, Falun Gong practitioners, are still not very well understood. Despite being among the most severely persecuted group in China, perhaps it is harder to really sympathize with them, with these people whose beliefs are rather foreign. So today I would like to shed some light on what Falun Gong really is and why they're being persecuted by the Communist Party. Falun Gong is many things, a set of meditation exercises, a moral code, and a way of life. If you have seen people practicing it in the park or in front of European Union today, you may have noticed that the exercise and meditation forms are very similar to Tai Chi and yoga. But more importantly, Falun Gong is a cultivation way. Cultivation refers to inner transformation, a continual process of refining one's character and letting go of selfishness and negative thoughts, and nurturing and virtue. Falun Gong teaches the principle of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And these principles are represented as the very nature of universe itself. So practitioners are encouraged to use these principles to discern what's good from what's bad. And many people who pay attention to their thought might notice that a lot of the obstacles in life actually come from ourselves. So when taken to heart, this belief is actually an extraordinary belief that caused a fundamental shift in a lot of these practitioners in their perspective of the world. And that's why so many people in China have risked their lives to stay true to this belief. It is a very Chinese thing. If you consider it as a practice that's reminiscent of Buddhist and Taoist teaching, which is an essential part of Chinese culture. But being a good person, trying to cultivate it, is very hard to achieve. But in the 1990s in China, tens of millions of Falun Gong practitioners actually gave it a try. Falun Gong was and it still is a social phenomenon. Because Falun Gong has no hierarchy or organizational structure, doesn't involve money and doesn't really keep membership, no one knows exactly how many practitioners they were in China. But in 1998, the State Sport Administration estimated that there were 70 million to 100 million practitioners in China, more than the membership of Communist Party. Now, this is a major reason why Falun Gong was targeted by the Communist Party, and such a huge independent group was unprecedented in a communist community, a Communist Party regime history. Now, the regime spent the first 50 years of its rule actively destroying all civil society, all forms of religious belief, effectively atomizing individuals so that they could found no insulation from the pervasive power of the state. The Communist Party was the sole source of moral authority in the land, and the party promoted materialism and money worship to fulfill the ideological vacuum. Falun Gong practitioners were, without even realizing it, creating this immense silent challenge to all of that. It was a popular revival of the traditional belief in the divine, and it was taught that material wealth were not the true purpose of life. So although Falun Gong was strictly apolitical, its moral message were seen as incompatible of the beliefs and values of the Communist Party. And so, in 1999, July 20th, the Communist Party launched a nationwide campaign against Falun Gong and established an extra-legal committee inside the Politburo Standing Committee, specifically to eliminate this peaceful group. Its name is the 610 Office. It has unlimited power, answered to no one, and was instructed to use any means necessary to eradicate Falun Gong. What unfolded was the largest concerted action of Chinese security forces since the Maoist era. The persecution was like another cultural revolution, except it was aimed only at one part of the population. Everyone was forced to express their stance against Falun Gong, every single member of the society. And coming from China, I was a student leader, and part of my job was to make sure that my classmates conform to this agenda of the government. So party members were taken to brainwashing classes, so as the students. The military were cleansed of Falun Gong practitioners, and lawyers were forbidden from defending Falun Gong clients. Families were broken apart, and husband and wives were expected to express their firm political stand if their partner persists in Falun Gong. Labor camps were built, and new means of brainwashing called transformation were developed. Hundreds of thousands were detained without trial and faced harrowing torture. A whole publishing industry sprung up, anti-Falun Gong propaganda. State-run press inundated the public with lies about Falun Gong meant to incite torture, to incite hatred against it. School children were showing pictures depicting Falun Gong practitioners as vampire bats that sucks blood and wrathing flame, leading children to their death. All this, of course, is a key ingredient to genocide, to dehumanize the targeted population. From that point on, Chinese citizens who practiced Falun Gong were outside the protection of the law. And this explains how organ harvesting could come about. With potentially millions of Falun Gong practitioners incarcerated in China's vast network of prison camps, they become worth more death than alive. Their organs were worth money. They are blood typed, and when a blood match is made, they can simply be led away and killed, or simply put under Anastasia to have their organ removed while they are still alive. The mass killing that we're talking about today is not an abstract concept. The victims are real people, and they're innocent Chinese citizens. I know that prisoners of conscience sometimes give people the impression that these people are prisoners, but we are talking about innocent Chinese people. What's more is that they're extraordinarily brave and noble people who wanted nothing more than to seek truth and goodness and practice their beliefs. And because they're not willing to relinquish their values, their principles, they have been killed so their government can benefit from their organs. I hope that after today's testimony, that you will do all in your power to also bring attention to this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we very much needed such a statement and the information and your commitment, which is very important in making millions of people know what is happening.